Hello and welcome to Web Chrony Online. In today's lesson, our focus is on input and image. Input is used to obtain data from clients, while image is used to display pictures on our website. So that is what we are going to do basically today. Please, if you are not subscribed to my channel, click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and leave a like on this video if you learn a thing or two. With that being said, my Visual Studio Code already opened. Let's begin. Alright guys, so continuing from where we ended last time, I will click here to open my HTML file so that we can continue with our work. But before we go on to work with the input, I would like to go live so that we can see what we are doing here on the fly. So I'll move my cursor here and then click on the go live. If you don't have the go live here, bring your cursor to this extension office and type here live server. Once you type live server, you see something that looks like this. Click on it to install it so that you can also see your result on the fly. This is the result of what we did from our previous lesson. I'll have a double screen, so this one will show here and this right here. Perfect. So I'll move my cursor under the H1 tag and we begin with our input. Because of the emmet support in Visual Studio Code, to create an input element in HTML, we just type input and then hit enter. Now the input has an attribute called type, and it is by default set to text. The type tells the browser the kind of information we are obtaining from the client. There are so many other types and we will take a look at the popular ones. But before we go on, there is this attribute in input element called placeholder. So I'll type my placeholder and I'll say enter your name. So placeholder is like a text that is displayed in the text input to tell the user the kind of information we expect from him or her. Alright, there are so many other attributes that we can have in an HTML input element, and another one that we can have is value. That is when we want to pre-populate some value inside the text input. So I can just type value attribute and I'll set it to, let's say, Jon Snow. And as you can see, the Jon Snow has been pre-populated into the input. When I clear it, then the placeholder will show. Alright, cool. Now let's move on to another type of input. So I'll create another input element, and this time around I'll change the type from text to number. And guess what we use this type of input for? We use it to obtain numbers. So anything other than a number will not appear in this input. So I'm trying to type some letters, they are not showing, but when I type numbers, they will show. Okay, so this one can also have a placeholder. Let's give it a placeholder and let's say example price. Alright, now there is another input type, so I'll create my input element, and this time around I'll change the type to email, and I'll have my placeholder, and I'll set a placeholder to Jon Snow at hbo.got. Now here, what the type email tells the browser to do is simple. If a user types something here, find out whether it looks like a proper email. If it doesn't look like a proper email, then give an error message indicating that the data that has been written in this is not correct. But we can only see this error when we try to submit something. Alright, and we haven't gotten there yet. So as time goes on, we'll get to know what the type email does in HTML. Now the next type of input that we are going to talk about is called radio. And the radio is like something that we can click to check. Is that okay? Like maybe, let me say, a check box, but this time around it's not a box. Because it's not a box, we call it radio. And now that I've mentioned checkbox, Then I think it is now time for us to have the type checkbox. So when I type checkbox like this, then the checkbox will appear here. I can click to check it, I can click to uncheck it. Alright, then another type of input that we can have is type password, and as the name suggests, we use this type of input to obtain password. So anything you type in it will be hashed. Okay, great. Now let me give it a placeholder, and the placeholder I'll say enter password like this. Okay, now there are some more. Let me move on to another type, and this type is date, and as the name suggests, we use this to obtain date from the client. So let's say we want to take their date of birth, or maybe the date they made a purchase. So when they click on this icon, the calendar will show. They can click here to select the year or the month, and let me select June, and let's say June 7th. Okay, so that is it. There are some more. We type input, and we also have another type called button, and what it does is that it converts the input into a button, and this particular type of input should have a value to display as the text of the button. So I will have a value, and let's say I will set the value to submit, and as you can see, we have a button with the text submit in it. Alright, there are some more. When I bring input and then I clear the text, when I press Ctrl space, it will show all the possible types that we have. For example, I can have tel, and as the name suggests, we use it to obtain telephone numbers from our client. So let me bring a placeholder, and I will say phone. So in here I can type my phone number. That will be it. There are so many types. So like I said, you just type your input, and then you clear the text, you press Ctrl and Shift, and everything will come. Now the last one that I want us to take a look at is the file, and this one is used mostly when we want the user to upload a picture or a file, any file at all. It could be image, it could be audio, video, any file at all. So when I click on the choose file, my local directory will be open, and I will be asked to select a file. Okay, great. So we will now move on to the image. Okay guys, so like I said earlier, we use the image to display pictures in a web page, and to display picture in a web page, we use the image element. To create the image element using Visual Studio Code is very simple because of the EMET abbreviation. So I'll just type my img like this, and then hit enter, and the image element has been created. Now we have been given two attributes already. We can add more, but the first attribute is called the src, which is a short form of source. This tells the image file we want to display and where it can be located, and this alt is a text that describes the image. The alt is very important because it helps screen readers to describe the image to someone who cannot see. It also helps search engines to rank your image in case someone searches it on let's say Google or Bing. Is that okay? So let's begin by dealing with the source, which is the file and where it can be located. Now as you can see here, I have 3 images in my folder, and the 3 images are in the same folder with my HTML file. So what it means is that they are neighbors, and if they are neighbors and I want to reference them in my HTML file, I just bring a dot, a /, and then the name of the image plus its extension. So as you can see, Visual Studio Code has already pre-populated them. So if I select the image 1, then the image 1 will appear here. If I go ahead and select the image 2, then image 2 will appear here. And of course, if I select image 3, the image tray will also appear. Now let's do this short exercise. Suppose I create a new folder and call it files, and I'll copy these 3 files into the folder. So let me copy everything. So now I have the images in a folder, and the folder is now enabled to the index.html. So what it means is that before I can locate the file, I have to also reference the folder in which the files have been kept. Okay, and to do that is pretty much simple. It's just a matter of when you bring the / after the dot, you see that the files folder has been brought here, and then the files are now displaying. Okay, so I'll go ahead and click the first one like this, and as you can see, it is showing right here. Now let's think about it this way, because this part is very important. Please pay critical attention to it. Let's assume that the index is also in a different folder. So let me create a folder and call it HTML, and then copy this file into it. Now I move it into it, and of course it cannot find it, okay, because the location has changed. So what I'm going to do is that I will click here to close my live server, and then I will click here to open it again. Great. Now as you can see, we have an image but it is not showing, and the reason is that the source is not correct. Okay, now let me use this opportunity to explain what the auth does before we continue with our SRC. So let me say this is an image of Web Chrony online YouTube thumbnail, something like that. Okay, so as you can see, we have something that looks like an image that couldn't load, but this text is showing. Okay, so the auth gives a description of the image, and like I said, it helps search engines to identify that image it is. And if someone tries to search on Google or Bing Web Chrony online YouTube thumbnail, they may recommend this image as well. And once they recommend the image, it means they are recommending your web page along. Is that okay? So the auth is very important for search engines, and it is also helpful for people who use screen readers. You see, there are some people they can't see properly, and when they visit your website, they use screen readers so that it will read everything on the web page, and when it reaches the image, because it cannot read the image, it will try and then read what is in the auth attribute to the person. Okay, so auth is very important. You can leave it empty, but it is advisable to provide a description of the image that you are showing. All right, so now back to the source. I'll clear everything. Now don't forget that the HTML file is also in a folder. Okay, and because the HTML file is in a folder, we have to walk out of that folder and then move on to the folder where the file can be found, and then locate the files. And to walk out of a particular folder, we bring 2 dots followed by a /. And as you can see, we are now having files here and then HTML here. So I'll select my files. I select image 2, and then image 2 appears. If I select image 3, then the image 3 appears. Okay, so that is how we do it. All right, okay guys, so this is where we wrap it all up. Thank you very much for staying with me to the very end. I appreciate that a lot. Kindly subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave a like on this video if you learned a thing or two. I'll see you in the next lesson. Until then, peace out.